Please welcome Sam Kass, Executive Director, Let's Move, and Senior Policy Advisor, Nutrition Policy.
Thank you, sir. Oh, I'm mic'd. Don't need that. How is everybody? Good. I've never followed a insect pitch before, but that was pretty inspiring. Thank you for having me here today. I know this has been a long couple days, so thank you for staying, and we'll try to get into it quickly. So I've been asked to talk about what we can do to convince leaders how to take on the issues that we've been discussing over the last couple days. So if I reflect on my experience, it sort of comes down to a few key points, I think. So one is do your homework and educate yourself. Second, and now this one's really important, you have to learn how to cook a really tasty lasagna, roast an incredible chicken, and make a mean pot of greens. And then third, make sure that the guy you're cooking for is a no-name senator who's about to become the first black president of the United States. No big deal. No, but to be serious, I'm so humbled to be here today. It's great to be in a room with so many people who helped shape my views and have such a big impact on these issues for so many years. And I'm especially excited to be here at Stone Barns. Dan is one of the great chefs and great thinkers of our time, and I've been so grateful for all of his leadership and support since the beginning. I will also add that this place has a very special place in my heart. The last time I was here, it was for my wedding. We got married here for a reason, me and my brilliant wife. Not because it's, incredibly beautiful or because, the food's not so bad, but also just because of what this place represents. And it was very meaningful for us to be married here. So how do we make these issues resonate with our leaders? That's the question. And I define leadership very broadly. We're going to need leaders from every sector of society if we're going to even begin to solve the challenges that we face. And fortunately for us today, we've convinced the most powerful man on earth and his incredibly powerful wife that food and nutrition should be a priority. Now, the simple fact is that President Obama and his administration, his wife included, have done more to reform the food system than any other administration in modern American history. The very fact that I am employed, that I have a job, of which I'm very grateful, is a victory for what we're calling here today the food movement. In the more than 2 centuries of the White House, there's never been a food initiative coordinator or a senior policy advisor on nutrition, or for that matter, anybody with a title that had anything to do with food or nutrition. From there, our policy and cultural wins have been expansive. I want to go over some of them because I want to talk about these wins, not just to sort of tout our accomplishments, but also to tout your accomplishments and to learn some of the lessons that we've gotten to understand better over these past few years. I'll begin with what we did with the White House. We remade it. We remade it to reflect the values of good, healthy, nutritious food. We began growing fruits and vegetables on the south ground of the White House. To this day, every night our chefs feed the first family and their guests with those vegetables. We had the first ever compost, the first ever beehive. This year we've added a pollinator garden. We're preserving vegetables in our kitchen and have brewed the first White House beer in the history of the House. Beer, by the way, that the president gave to Republican leaderships just last week. Now, the symbolism is really powerful, and we can see this in the fact that since we planted the White House garden, home gardening is up 17%. Among young people, it's up 63%, and community gardens are up 200%. Now, we're not sure what the GOP is going to do after they drink that White House ale, but we're definitely optimistic. It's some tasty beer. But beyond the White House itself, we've helped push for provisions in the Farm Bill that, for the first time in history, were designed to have more resource for conservation and land stewardship than for subsidies. We've expanded farmers markets programs and provided supports for new and beginning farmers. There's funding for specialty crop research. And we've eliminated direct subsidies. They're gone. Was it perfect? Of course not. It's Washington. But was it a huge step in the right direction? Absolutely. The USDA, and under the leadership of my good friend Kathleen Merrigan, they established the Know Your Farmer, Know Your Food program, which is dramatically making strides to support local and regional food systems. We've overhauled school nutrition for the first time in 30 years. We've established standards on vending machines and snack bars for the first time ever. We've removed junk food from our schools. We've banned marketing of junk food to our children. And in high poverty districts, they can now serve universal breakfast and lunch to all their children. That's affecting over 1 million kids a day. 1 million. And their new normal are things like they only know whole wheat bread and whole wheat pasta. That's a big deal. We've targeted key levers like setting standards with the Department of Defense for the $4.65 billion worth of food that they serve and they purchase and serve every year. Or to propose sweeping changes to the Nutrition Facts Panel, adding a line for added sugar, which is really important information for parents. We've finalized a determination that trans fats are no longer generally recognized as safe, a step that will save tens of thousands of lives. And then there's the issue of antibiotics, and I just want to take a minute to talk about this. Anyone who tells you that the work that we have done on antibiotics is toothless is just simply dead wrong. The 25 companies who provide over 90% of the antibiotics to farmers are changing their label of use, meaning that if a farmer does not administer the antibiotic according to the label, they are in violation of the law. In addition, we release guidance that says for antibiotics to be administered, they must be prescribed by a veterinarian. It will no longer be legal to use antibiotics for growth promotion. Now, people are right to point to enforcement as a serious issue, absolutely. But that was going to be an issue no matter what steps we took towards limiting antibiotic use. We're going to be pushing for transparency so we can assess the effectiveness of this strategy. And if this doesn't work, we're going to take additional actions, and the companies know this. So these are all real wins, and for the sake of not losing everybody, I know it's been a long day, I'm going to stop there, but there's a lot more stuff that we've been able to accomplish. The same is true for Let's Move. Really briefly, the First Lady of the United States has used her great personal and political capital in fighting for these issues. She's run some real battles. Just a couple. I have so many, but just a couple. Right now we have 15,000 child care centers that have signed up, that have pledged to not serve sugary drinks, to serve fruits or vegetables for snacks, and not to serve them fried foods. We have a Drink Up Water campaign that is marketing water as the best and healthy choice, and we've seen a 3% rise of water consumption above the trend for those who have seen the campaign, and a decrease in soda consumption. Media companies like Disney and Sesame Street are pledging their characters to market fruits and vegetables to really offset junk food marketing. I could go on, but I won't, promise. That's what's happening on the inside, but also what's on the outside is increasingly impressive. For the first time, we're seeing an increase in farmers in over a century. We're seeing companies who are selling unhealthy foods see continual declines in their sales, while companies that are selling healthier foods are seeing increases. Childhood obesity rates are beginning to come down. This is all meaningful, and nobody could have imagined this kind of success just a few years back. But the fights have been hard, and not all the battles we've won. And if I'm being honest, we definitely haven't accomplished all that we'd hoped for. And we're going to need help breaking through some of these barriers that we're up against. First, and this is an important one, this issue should fundamentally be a bipartisan one. But partisanship is holding progress back. On the legislative side, for example, we were not pleased with the levels of crop insurance in the Farm Bill. As far as SNAP goes, although we were able to prevent the work requirements that were being pushed and push back on the drastic cuts to the tune of $40 billion that Republicans were proposing, they were able to decouple SNAP from a number of other social safety net programs, making it harder for people to access these kind of problems for those who desperately need them. So while we have made tremendous strides in ensuring access to quality food, there's still way too many communities that don't have good food within reach. So there's so much more to do. So now the question becomes, how are we more effective? How can we continue to take this work to the next level? It starts with becoming much more sophisticated and strategic. We must move from these lofty theories which set unrealistic expectations of what change should look like, to pragmatic, meaningful steps that reflect the political reality that we have to operate in. So here are 5 straightforward principles drawn from both my experience inside and out of the White House that I think is essential if we want leaders to continue to work on these issues. 1, we have to know who our allies are and, of course, be open to new allies. If a leader has taken on one of our issues, even when things don't land exactly where we want, discrediting them simply does not improve their ability to win the next round. If you imagine credibility being the legs by which any leader carries an issue forward, if you hack away at their legs, it makes it harder for them to walk. We have to be much more strategic in our communications. Now, everyone here, I assume, loves and values food. And in many ways, it defines us. It certainly defines me. But when I hear many speak, it's as though the goal is to create a world where everyone becomes like them, where food is the organizing principle for all. And I think we need to be much more realistic about that. Instead of trying to convince the person who heads up a school district that food is as important as education, we should just make the case that good nutrition begets significant improvements on test scores. Likewise, if we're talking to a health insurance company, the argument should be about lowering costs. Health insurance companies do not care about the flavor of a local carrot. And that's just fine. 3, I think we need to celebrate our wins better, even if the game is not over. So if we're going to be successful, we have to be positive. We're going to need to create an environment that rewards risk. Risks taken by leaders in politics and in business. Now, I'm not talking about the political stunts, because those should be criticized. The PR stunts, sorry. But being out in front of any issue is difficult, treacherous work, and we have to acknowledge that. And we want to be a force that empowers the people that are pushing for that change from within. And what many don't see is that the result of harsh criticism, often lobbed at incremental progress, is the people that are inside who are pushing for that change end up getting disempowered. We cannot continue to make progress a political liability. The food industry is here to stay. It just is. And we need to move beyond the debate about whether industry has a role to play. It does, full stop. They're not going to pack up their bags, they're not leaving. And no world leader will take serious the notion that you can change the food system without engaging the industry that's feeding everybody. Now, there are some products or some approaches that will never have a home in a better food movement. I get that, I accept that. But companies change, and they're trying to change precisely because of the impact that we're all having. And I think we need to take steps to support that kind of change and pressure them to continue to do more. And lastly, the ballot box is as important as the lunchbox. Voters need to care. This work will only go so far if no votes depend on it. There are people starting to do this work. My good friend Tom Colicchio is having a big impact very quickly on this. But if we are serious about change, then we need to get serious about politics. And in states where a lot of these crops are grown, people care, and money is invested in the system. So on that front, last question is sort of where should we be focusing in these next 2 years and in the years ahead? I would say the first is immigration reform. If you speak to fruit and vegetable farmers, they don't ask for subsidies. They ask for a dependable labor force. The Senate passed a comprehensive bill. It's sitting on the House. The President has given the Speaker a couple months to act. If we want to change the food system, this is an issue we all need to get really interested and engaged in. The second, and we've heard a lot about poverty and inequality, the second is minimum wage. For the millions of food workers getting paid at or below minimum wage, equality is one of the most pressing issues in developing a more sustainable, just food system. We should be all over this issue, and I'm heartened by some of the traction that we're seeing, particularly in some of the quick-serve restaurants. 3, and we've heard a lot about this today, and I agree, is climate change. There has to be much more thought and effort put into the policies that both prepare us to cope with climate change and the strategies to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. This is a top priority, and people in the administration are working hard on identifying those levers. But this is an area that I think the food community needs to dig into in earnest and develop what are those strategies and actions that can be taken. I think in the health and healthcare arena, there is a massive untapped potential. ACA has provided a big opening for us. A strategy that can be seen, an intervention that is seen to improve health outcomes can now be covered by health insurance companies. Food is our medicine, right? We've been talking about this for a long time. But, well, now there's the opening to actually get it covered and be part of our healthcare system. Good friends at Wholesome Wave are doing incredible work at that. But this is an area that we haven't even begun to tap into the potential at all. 5, and lastly, is demand. And I think you hear particularly a lot of the farmers talking about demand. We will only be successful if we understand the limits of Washington's ability to solve these problems. Obviously a big role to play, but quite limited as well. Food is one of the ultimate expressions of who we are, of our culture, and our understanding of ourselves. And our strategy must take this into account and must focus on this. Our policies are the result of our culture. And in the end, the food choices we make are the result of those values. That's why we have spent so much time on marketing in our time in the White House. Limiting junk food marketing, particularly to kids, and very importantly, increasing the marketing and promotion of healthy foods. We have to make fruits and vegetables and whole grains as fun and as sexy and as emotionally charged as sugary drinks and chips. Shifting that demand is essential if we want to see the rest of these actions that we've talked about being taken actually happen. So after the past few years, I've witnessed the power of food, and I've witnessed food with power. I've watched President Obama take world leaders down to the garden and watched him give seeds to the Pope as his offering, as a gift. I've watched our First Lady give out honey and herbs from the garden to world leaders at the United Nations, and watched her dig up peanuts and sweet potatoes, only to end up on the front page of papers all over the world, as far as China. I've sat next to children who, just after harvesting the garden and preparing those vegetables from the garden, nervously whispered to me that they had never tried a salad before, as they sat down in the state dining room with about 100 press focused on what they're going to do. Now, quickly, my young friend declared that the salad was absolutely incredible and quickly asked for seconds, which was incredibly powerful in its own right. I'm moved maybe most every single year at the Kids State Dinner. This is an event that we have annually where one winner from each state between the ages of 8 and 12 win a trip to the White House for cooking the tastiest, healthiest, most affordable recipe. They get flown to the White House, and they get the full service. They come in their little suits and their dresses. They get announced in. They get interviewed by the press. They go up for their little cocktail hour, and there's like funny little drinks and with umbrellas and stuff. They get butler service, White House china, entertainment. The president comes by, It's amazing. And all those kids, by the way, go back home as heroes in their communities for cooking a healthy recipe. This past year, a man by the name of Braden Manning introduced the First Lady. And he got up and blew us away. He said, when I was here last year representing Delaware, I sat at the same table as our First Lady, Michelle Obama. She was very fun to talk to, and she gave us permission to eat with our fingers. Except she said the president was not allowed to use his fingers, and I thought that was very funny. We talked about a lot of things, but one of the things I remember most is when she asked the kids at my table how we could pay forward the experience that we were having. At the time, he says, I didn't know the answer. So he tells this story about how on the way home, after we went back to Delaware, he saw a man on the street, a homeless man, in the rain. And he saw him, and then they went home, and he said he just went to the kitchen, and he made a sandwich, and got a bottle of water and an umbrella, and he demanded that his mother take him back. So he tells the story, and he says, my answer now is called 3B, or Braid's Brown Bags. I've given out over 1,300 brown bags packed with healthy food and clean water. And I include a note from me and my contact information for services that can be provided to the person if they need more help. He then says, look up. He had all these smile. 3B is now officially a public charity, and I am raising money and awareness about food insecurity every day. The child is 9 years old. It is just as important for me and for you to eat healthy as it is important for all of us to be able to eat healthy. Now, everyone in this room is here for the same reason. Because we care deeply about America, because we care deeply about our future, because we believe we can end obesity and poverty and inequality, because we believe we can have a foodscape that supports and sustains us all. We are because we love our children and we want to leave them with a vibrant future, where the healthy choice is actually the easy choice for all Americans and everybody the world over. And we believe that we can build a model here in America that can really help the rest of the world solve these problems as well. Now, right now, we have a lot of momentum, a lot of it. And a politician will be the first to tell you that momentum is one of the hardest things to secure, but it's also one of the most critical, and we have it. I simply could not be more optimistic about where we're headed. Even the pushback excites me. I love the pushback because it is indicative of just how much progress we are making. And every day I'm stunned by how far we've come. The work ahead will not be easy. But when I speak to young leaders out there, ones who are planting school gardens, working on the Hill, working in food policy and city governments, their determination, their brilliance, their ingenuity, their integrity, their commitment, it just makes me know that we're going to get there. We're going to go towards a much more healthy, sustainable food system. Now, there are definitely going to be bumps. There have been. There will be. There will be arguments and reversals and setbacks and fights. But kid by kid, school by school, company by company, policy by policy, it's the only path forward. And it's going to get us where we need to go. So thank you for all your work, and thank you for your time here.